Do a review in Likiutei Sichos in Chelik Hey, volume 25. The first Sicha in this Chelik, the first Sicha for Parshas Breishis. This is a Rashi Sicha, and the Rebbe comes up with a very profound chiddush in Rashi. Rashi starts off when it discusses that after Hashem created the light, kitoiv, it says vayavdil elikim bein ha'oiru bein ha'choshech, and Rashi brings down first a medrash agoda that Hashem separated it for the tzaddikim losid lovoi, and then he brings lefi pshuto. Seems to be against the whole idea of first explaining things simply and then going to explain according to Drash. Especially in this case, the Drash is like totally far-fetched. Anyways, the Rebbe explains that within the words of Vayavdil, Vayarelikim Esoir Kitoi Vayavdil, that there was a separation within the light itself. It's not that, yeah, the Abers are separated. There is a light that is from the Kitoiv. There had two parts of it to the light. One of it that it was good, and then something that was separated, as the Rebbe will explain, so that in the wording, it fits more like the Agoda. But of course, in the context, it seems more like the other pshat, as we'll go step by step. We're learning the Sicha Lilu Nishmas to benefit the soul of our dear son, Harav Levi Yitzchok ben Chaim Tzvi, Tehin Nishmos Yitzru Rebbe Chaim. We'll go step by step. Breishis, Aleph. Von Posik in the verse, Vayar Elikim Esoir Kitov, it says that Hashem saw that the light that he created, the oir, is good. Vayavdil elikim ben ha'oir ben ha'choshech, and God separated between the light and between the darkness. That's the pasuk. So Hashem created the light, and he saw that the light was good, and then he separated between the light and the darkness. Is Rashi maitig the verter vayar elikim esoir kitoi vayavdil. So Rashi quotes from the pasuk, Elikim, Hashem saw that the oil was good, vayavdil, so he separated. Quotes that from the pasuk on his mefarish, and he says, Av bozeh onu tzrichim ledifrei hagoda. Here too, we need the words of the Agoda. What does the Agoda say? Rashi, here too, as we'll see, the Rebbe will explain why does Rashi have to say all these lotions, but we'll see it later. But what does the Agoda say? Hashem saw that the Rishoyim aren't fit to use it. So then Hashem separated it by Yavdil Lilikim. He separated it for tzaddikim for the future to come. So the separation means that Hashem separated it, that they will use this in the future for the tzaddikim. So that's the Medrash Agoda, and according to the simple meaning, Kach Parsheu. So explain it as follows. Ra'uhu kitoy. He saw that it's good, and therefore, vein no Eloi. It's not nice for this light, which is good. It's not nice for it, and for the darkness, that they should be serving in a mixture. The the different version than Rashi, but this is the quote in the Rashi from here. So he separated it for the tzaddikim for the future. It's not proper for them to use it in a mixed up way, or the lotion is mishamshim in the Tfos Sheni, which means either they should be used or they should be serving in a mixture. So Hashem set up the light boundaries is in the day, and the boundaries of the darkness is at night. A night is dark and a day is light. And that means the separation. The separation was to give each other the boundaries. And Rebbe will explain now. From the Mefarshim. Let the Mefarshim. So Mefarshim explain, over here, you separate things that are mixed together. Light and darkness do not mix together. By definition, where there's light, there's no darkness. If there's darkness, there's no light. So what does it mean to separate them? So, Lernen Meforshim Ados was Rashi Darf Av Boze Onkumen zu Divrei Agode. The Rashi needs to here also come on to the words Agode is weil der Vayavdil do kemenit mefarzai kimashmo. We cannot explain it as it means to separate. Havdola tzvishin v'choshech, to make a separation between light and darkness. Light and darkness cannot be mixed, that you need to separate them. Hayois. As havdola ishayich nor badvorim hamisarv. Separate, you can only separate between things that get mixed in. But not when you talk about light and darkness, they cannot get mixed together. But b'shas is made oil. At the time that there is light shining, there cannot be darkness there. So, what does it mean over here by Yavdil? Mefarshim explain. The Rebbe daf Rashi onkumen zu divrei Agod. That's where Rashi needs to come on to the words of the Agod. That the separation the separation is not between the Eir and the Choshech. But what is that Pirush Vayavdil nitki mashmo? This is not like it's seemingly like the meaning as it appears. Avdola zwischen Eir v'Choshech, we're trying to separate the Eir v'Choshech. Nor those was Mavdil given them Eir letzadikim lo. He separated it, he put it apart, this Eir for the tzadikim. So it's another pshat in Vayavdil. It's not separating between Eir and Choshech, but it's separating the Eir for the tzadikim. Ubehemshech lezeh zokt Rashi weiter. And the Rashi continued later on. Lifi pshutei, but according to the simple meaning, sheyiyah havdil k'mashmoi, that the separation should be as between Eir and Choshech. How do we explain it? Kach parshei. You have to explain it like this. It wasn't that the Eir v'Choshech were mixed up, but it was they were mixed in the time that a little Choshech, a little Eir, they were mixed in. There wasn't have boundaries when there is Eir and Choshech. Not that the Eir v'Choshech themselves were mixed in. So how do we explain it? B'pshat kach parshei. Ra'o ki toiv. He saw that it's good. The light is good. Ve'ein no eloy la'choshech sheyu mishtamshim be'irvuvia. So it's not pretty. It's not nice for the darkness, the light and the darkness, to be serving or being used in a mixture. Main indik. What he means is an irvuvia. When he says they shouldn't be doing mixed up, an irvuvia niti mokim. It doesn't mean that in the same place you have light and darkness. That's not possible. But what it means zusammen neinort. We don't mean that the light and the darkness are shining in the same place. You can't have light and darkness in the same place, nor in zman. But we're talking about there was a mixture, was a time. as is nit given kizman kavua when es soll sein oir und wenn cheshach. There wasn't a set time when there should be light, when there should be dark. Mixture meaning time-wise, it wasn't set. Nor she's given lepomim lichtig lepomim finster. Sometimes it was light, sometimes it was dark. Und der Abdol is bestanden in them. So what was the separation? What Hashem separated? Vayavdil elikim. What Hashem separated by standing them was kovalozet tchumei bayoim. He put the boundaries for the light in the daytime, ulozet tchumei balaylo, and for the boundary for the darkness at nighttime. So the issue the Meforshim explain in the pasuk is how do we separate? The pasuk says to separate between light and darkness. When light and darkness inherently are separated. Why do we need to separate them? So first Pshat Rashi brings down that the separation meant separate the light for La'asid Lovit. In the second separation, the second Pirush Rashi learns in Pshat that we're talking separating light from darkness. It means not that light and darkness were at the same time in the same place, but that they intermittently they didn't have any boundaries. And Hashem separated, made the day for the light and the night for the darkness. But in that case, the Rebbe asks, so why is Rashi bring down the Agoda before when it's not logically? We should say the Pshat before the Agoda. It's not understood. Now, Rashi has not yet mentioned the rule that he teaches Pshat, so therefore Pshat should come first. But it's obvious that Pshat comes first, and only after you can't figure out in Pshat, you should look for explanation. Why would Rashi start with the Agoda? Although Rashi hadn't yet specifically said, Ani lebosi elo lipshutei, I'm only coming for Pshat. So he really doesn't need to bring down Agoda altogether. He hasn't said that yet. That he only says several verses later on. So even though Rashi hasn't said it that he's only doing the Pshat, but that's logically the way we should explain things. So the very simple explanation where you say Pshat Agoda Drash, what does it mean? Simple. Agoda means to expound, that we get the story and the expounding the drash. Just these words, Zok, this says, as zum allem ersten kommt der offener Main. That first comes the open meaning, which is the Pshat. Und erst der noch, and only after, befrat, this is the glatik, especially if something is not fully smoothly in the Pshat, hotan ort oivatelech lidresh, then you go to seek, quoting from the pasuk, you go to look out if it doesn't make sense. She was struggling and she had the baby. She didn't know why. So she went to Lidresh Hashem. So you go for the drash if you don't understand the pshat. Then you go to look something which is not open. A drash, expounded, agoda, atam, a reason, so Rashi didn't say that he's only pshute, but this is something which we understand ourselves. That first you approach the pshat, this is kufa muchal from Lashon Rashi. Here itself, from Rashi's language, it's evident because Rashi says Rashi says here too, we need the words of the Agoda. As lechoyle roish. It's Pshuta Shel Mikra. So he's saying we need also the Agoda, which means that Rashi is indicating that, first of all, we need the Pshuta Shel Mikra. Simple meaning. Nordo, Muzman, Onkum, to Divra Agoda. Here we need to come on to the words of Agoda. Rashi firtois them in the mountain Pasuk. The Rashi mentions in the Pasuk quoted earlier that I'm coming to give only the Pshat. Then he adds, and to the Agoda, which explains the words of the Pasuk, which means in them Mikra felt Yishuv. In the Pasuk, there's still something not settled. You need to settle it, so you come onto the Agoda. So why would Rashi over here give us a Pirush Hagodim for the Pshat? Especially in this case, the Agoda is like totally way off. Is vibald as lefi Pirush Hanal. Apia Pirush Hanal, hot Rashi a Pirush lefi Pshutui. Sit according to the previous explanation in Rashi, like we learned from the Mefarshim. So Rashi has a interpretation that he can explain literally, simply. Loit welchem der Vayavdel is kemashmoy, the Vayavdel means literally. Pavos darf Rashi berheupt ankommen zum Pirush von Divrei Agoda. So why does Rashi at all need to come on to the interpretation of the words Agoda? Was lefi Pirush ze is der Vayavdel, according to this Pirush, nit lefi mashmoy. Because here the Rebbe says lefi mash, the Rashi says lefi mashmoy. That means the first pshat, it's not mashmoy. Mashmoy is Abdol zwischen zwei Sachen. We're separating between two things, not separating for tzaddikim, not if dilul tzaddikim. Why does he have to come on to that at all? And further, even if he does want to say it, why does he say it first? Even if we're going to say that the simple meaning is not so smooth. But lifizeh, as Rebbe explained, is the Havdolah nicht zwischen dem Ur v'choshech atzmo. The way we explain it, Hashem separated the times when they serve, but we didn't separate the light from the darkness. They were never together. So, lifizeh is the Havdolah nicht zwischen dem Ur v'choshech atzmo. It's not separating the darkness and the light themselves. They were never mixed. Not a Havdolah in Kviyas Manim. The separation was just to set up time when they should serve. That's why we would also need to come to the words Agoda. Is over the Pirush Pshuto nenter to the Mashmos, but the simple meaning, according to the Pshat, it's closer to the understanding, the meaning from word Vayavdil. It's closer to saying Vayavdil separation, okay, separating in different times, then separating it for the tzaddikim, und zum Teuchen von der weitere Werte vom Posuk. It also fits the contents of the words that follow. Vayavdil goimer bein ha'or ben ha'choshech. It says clearly distinguishing between light and night, not talking about tzaddikim over there. With the Pirush von Agoda, this is much better, closer, seemingly, than the meaning of the Divrei Agoda in Vayavdil. So according to this, Rashi al kol ponim gedaft. If Rashi does want to bring down the Pirush Agoda, at least he should have magdim zayin dem Pirush lefi pshote. First, should have told us the meaning according to the Pshat. Farden Pirush from Divrei Agoda. Before giving us the meaning, interpreting Divrei Agoda. Okay, so the Rebbe asking here that if, according to the Mefarshim, Rashi has two explanations to explain the Vayavdil. Yes, Rashi has the difficulties that the Oir and Choshev don't mix, so why do we need to separate them? But according to the Pshat, it means that he separated them at different times. That seems to be more logical. Rashi says that's Lefi Pshutai. So why does Rashi have to bring the Drush of Vayavdil, which is separated for the Tzaddikim, which the Pasuk, it doesn't fit into the context. Also, Vayavdil is not separating one from the other, just separating first of the. And Rashi, why does Rashi bring it at all, and why does it bring it first? Another question the Rebbe says. If you look the heading in Rashi, Rashi doesn't even bring down the part of Ur Choshech. Rashi brings down only the Vayavdil. Ich darf ihn verstehen. Bald as die Schwierigkeit im Posik. Since the difficulty in the verse, was Rashi kommt verändern. The Rashi is coming here to answer. Was zu lieb dem onu tzrichen divrei Agoda. That is why we need the words of the Agoda. Is wie pass zu sagen Havdalah zwischen Ur und Choshech. How does it fit to say separation between light and darkness? They can't separate them. Wie bald seine nicht misarif, they don't mix. Hat doch Rashi gedacht, meitig sein Ur dem Hemshech HaKosuf. So Rashi should have quoted also the continuation of the pasuk. Rashi stops by the word Vayavdil, Vayara Likim as Likiutei, Vayavdil. That's what Rashi brings down. Rashi should have wrote down Vayavdil Likim ben Ur ben ha'choshech. Because the issue is that Vayavdil doesn't fit with Oren Choshech. Rashi doesn't bring down the word Oren Choshech. Or minimally, or a kopanim, Ramazain the Vert with the Gomer, or minimally to hint to this word by saying etc. To say what do you mean? Because that's the issue. The issue is that Vayavdil doesn't fit in between Oren and Choshech. And Rashi doesn't say that. Rashi just brings down the heading. So there must be another issue here that Rashi is concerned with. So this is the second question. First of all, the order in Rashi, why does Rashi bring down the Agoda? And second of all, why in the quote from the Pasuk does Rashi not bring down Oren Choshech, which is the seemingly issue according to the Mefarshim? Why does Rashi, why do we need to separate it if they're already inherently separated? In Ais Gimel, the Rebbe attempts to explain why the Medrash, a possible explanation, why the Medrash Agoda would be closer to the Pshat than the Pshuta Shel Mikra, and the Rebbe doesn't really accept that. The point the Rebbe is trying to say, you see that Rashi changes the Lashon when he says in the Pshute Shel Mikra, it says Ein No Eloi, not Ein Toiv Loi. The Rebbe wants to explain that we can't say that it's Ein Toiv because the fact that it wasn't in a separate tchum would not be not good. Nothing happened to the light. It's not No Eloi, as opposed to when we're talking about the Medrash over there, it's Ein Toivloi, it's not good, literally. So since the Lashon Ein Toivloi is more fitting in the Medrash, that's where Rashi brings it first, but the Rebbe says this whole Medrash of Osir Love is not mentioned in Pshuta Shel Mikra, it's still not the better one of the two. Let's just take a look inside and see what the Rebbe says there. And then we'll go over in Ois Dalet to the answer Rebbe's explanation. Gimel. Von dem is verstandig. The fact that Rashi in the quote of the Posik doesn't bring down the Ben Choshech, the Vayavdil Ben Ben Choshech, is verstandig as der Scheile und der Hechrech of sein Pirush, that his question and what forces his commentary is Davke von der Werte Vayare Likim es Oir Kitoi Vayavdil. It's specifically from the words that Hashem saw the light is good and Vayavdil, not the Oir Choshech. Was do is nit move on. What's the problem? The Rebbe suggests over here is Vayar Elikim es Oir Kitoi. How could the Eibishter saw that the light is good and therefore Vayavdil? Asiba v'tam to Vayavdil. Why would that bring a reason for separation because Hashem said that the oil is good? The Rebbe zogt Rashi, that's why Rashi says we need the Divrei Agoda. Ra'ohu kitoiv, because Hashem, it says that it's kitoiv u'b'meila she'ena kedai lishtamish b'rishoyim v'ivdiloi, and therefore, because the Ebrish Tevayar Elikim kitoiv, so then he says it's not fitting lishtamish b'rishoyim, and therefore v'ivdiloi. That's what Rashi brings on the Medrash. So based on this explanation that we are explaining over here, why did Hashem have to separate it? Because he saw it was good. And that's why he explains the Medrash that that was the reason that Rav Kitoy. What's the second shot? And Al Pizeh wird man gekannt euch masber sein, was Rashi is magdin dem Pirush von Divrei Agode par dem Pirush lefi pshutei. We can also explain, if this is the question, and that's what Rashi is answering, why Rashi brings the interpretation of the Ragode before the Pirush Lefi Pshute. Ubahagdim, the Rebbe says by introducing first Diuk Loshen Rashi in the Pirush Lefi Pshute. When Rashi gives the simple meaning, the Rashi uses the word Ra'o Kitov, and then it says Ve'eino Eloyu Lachoshech Sheyihu Mishtamshim Birvuvia. And it's not nice, not pretty for the oil and the cheshach to be serving mixed in a mixture. It doesn't say ve'ein toiv loyu lacheshach sheyu mishtabshin. It says ein no'aloi the lechayra, but it would seem what merge pastas that Rashi zon kiloshana kosuf would be more fitting for Rashi to say the language of the pasuk. Ra'o chulu. And ve'ein toiv loyu lachay, not ve'ein noah, ve'ein toiv loyu lacheshach sheyu mishtamshim berevuvia. It's not good for him in the darkness to be serving in a mixture. Nor loy pshutei is ain't. So why does Rashi use the noah loy? Because in pshutei shel mikra that we're saying, Hashem saw the light is good. Why can't we? Why can't we say? Why? How could we say in toiv loy? The word. Yarol Zimki Toiv in Pshute is a little bit schwer to say. Why? Because it's toiv. What wrong happened to the oir if it's birvuvia? So therefore Rashi has to change and say no Eloi. And that makes it further than the Pashto Pshat that toiv in the Medrash Agoda, not the Pashto, the Medrash the Agoda. Nor loy pshute is ein toiv loy v'lachoysher nit richtig. That would not be correct to say that's what Rashi has to change it to ein no'alei, because saying it's not good for the oil, it wouldn't be proper. Kenes nit zayin asibet suvayavdel. That cannot be a reason why Hashem has to separate because it's not good for him. Vorum vibald as esis bazein need given can irvuv bepoil, since actually there was no mix-up. They actually served in different times. Whenever there was light, it was dark, it was different times. She's not need given as seder kavu bismanam. The only thing is there was not a set order. One is light and one is dark. So you can't say, Rashi can't say it's not good. It did not impact, it did not affect the light or the darkness. Nor sees blois ain't no. It's only that it's not pretty for him. Oh, so therefore, that's why Rashi doesn't use the word toiv loy, because toiv would not be the right, it's no. But since the pasuk does use the lashon toiv, vayaralihim aser ki toiv, it doesn't say ki no, it says ki toiv. The bald as vayaralikim aser ki toiv is nit shayich. As azach chosh ve'oir is nit shein. I'm sorry. That means it's no nola. Nor she's blois ain't nola. It's not nice. That's all it is. Bald as vayaralikim aser ki toiv. So that it's good, isn't it shame? It's not noah. As azachosh v'zach v'oir. Such an important thing as well. So sein bervuya should be a mixture. Mit choshev. Und nicht haben makvudik man for sich, and not to have a set time for itself. So, turns out that according to the pshat, the word toiv is not precise. According to the Agoda, toiv is precise. As loy divrei Agoda is vayaralikim ki toiv, amer vogi kesibo. It's a more weighty reason to vayavdel. The baldas ki toiv, since it is good, ain't no kidai. The shtamish by rishoyim is not fitting. So the ki toiv is the good reason for not serving rishoyim. The lifi pshutai, it's better than pshutai. But loy dem is mitzad ki toiv. Or by pshutei, because kitoiv not ain't no, it's only not pretty. Under far vayavdel, it's better a toiv to be the reason for vayavdil, literally toiv, not just that it's not good because it's not pretty. I mean, that's why Rashi brings the first shot of the Medrash. But the Rebbe says this is still not, would not be a reason because the Medrash is still way off from the Pashtim shot. Aber euch der Pirush kann man nicht annehmen in Pirush Rashi. We still cannot accept this in Rashi als Tam zu bringen, as a reason to bring, und noch mehr zu magdim sein, first to bring it all together and then to bring it first, the Divrei Agode, weil dies Siba zu Vayavdil, because this cause that Hashem separated is klal nit merumas afil in posik. It's not even hinted at all in the verse. It's not an from Agode, it's something from Agode. Ubefrat is not galatic, der Pirush, especially this interpretation is not fitting, is not smooth. So the Pasuk continues, Vayavdil Elikim, Be'neir v'nacheshach. It doesn't just say Vayavdil, it says Vayavdil Elikim, Be'neir v'nacheshach. So we can't say that Rebbe says the reason is because, look in Rashi, that it's not really Ein Tov, and that's why by the Magoda Ein Tov is very literally, it's not. Yeah, it says Kitov, so it's not fitting for the Rishoyim, but still, that wouldn't be a reason to bring that pshat and before the Pashta pshat. And the Rebbe is going to explain now in Ois Dalet that the Vayavdil is actually in the Oir itself, that there was two parts to the Oir. The Mashmos is Vayavdil. The Pasuk says that Hashem says Kitoi Vayavdil, so he separated it. And the Rebbe first brings down the Diglosh Rashi that we see in the Pshat what is Rashi's emphasis over here? Dalet. Let's look inside. Yeshloim Rabir Bazeh Bahagdim. Explanation by introducing was Rashi Chazet Iber Bepirushay. Rashi sort of repeats in his commentary in Lifipshutai, the way Rashi says, Ra'ohu Kitoiv. He says again, he saw that it's good. Why is Rashi saying again Kitoiv? Noch dem wer is meitig in dem Divra Maschel Diverter. He already in the opening says, Vayara Lekim Esoir Kitoiv. So Rashi says in Pshutish Mikra, Ra'ohu Kitoiv. Veino. Al derech harogel der gedacht Umfang Rashi should have started without saying Rokit. Should have said Ro Shein Nole. He saw that it's not pretty punkt wie in Pirush von Divrei Agode. Just like in the Agode where Zokt nit Ro Kitoi ve'ene kidai l'shtamish v'chulu. No, he goes right to the point. Ro Shein kidai l'shtamish boy. He saw that the Shoim are not fit to use it. He doesn't say Rosh Ketov and so why does it actually repeat it? Babir was that. So the explanation of das ist Take einer von den Chilukim zwischen dem ersten Pirush in Rashi und dem zweiten Pirush. This is the difference between the first and the second Pirush. This is the difference in Ra'ohu Kitov, as the Rebbe will explain. Bald es steht Vayar Elikim es ha'oir Kitov Vayavdil. It says Elikim saw the oir that it was toiv. Shul could have just said Vayar Elikim Kitov Vayavdil. He saw that it emphasizes that he saw the oir Kitov is moving. As der Vayavdil is verbunden mit dem Vayar Elikim es ha'oir Kitov. Hashem saw not that he saw something that the oir is Kitov. Und das macht Rashi klor mit dem. Rashi makes this clarifies, was bringt in Dibra Maskil, nor Vayar Elikim es oir Kitov Yavdil. It just brings down Vayavdil without bringing the rest of the pasuk, nicht divided the keverter, not the words that follow. When he's feeling it meramis with v'goyim, doesn't even hinted with v'goyim. As der Vayavdil le pirush zeh, the Vayavdil according to this interpretation, but sitzich nit nor oif weiter. It's not only Vayavdil further, nor oif freyer. it is Vayara Lekim Esoir Kitoi Vayavdil, and he separated as before. The Hainu, the Avdoli is given in the Meir Gufa. Vayara Lekim Esoir Kitoi Vayavdil, he separated there. Vibal Vayara Lekim Esoir Kitoi. It's an additional, besides creating the oil. Now he saw the light to type Adover Noisov, Vayar, Adover Noisov, Asido Inaim, Oich Derinyan from Toiv, that there is also, the oil has also Toiv. He's Vayavdil, and it is Obgitel. Then Toiv from the oil. He's separated between the Toiv and the oil. Which is geblieben begoli blois the Lichtigkeit von oil. He's separated, and therefore, what did we remain with? Just with oil. Aber nicht dem Teuf, but the Teuf didn't remain. Und zum Masber sein dem Tam, was man gedacht, Mavdel sein dem Teuf Shabayr. So to explain the reason, why did Hashem have to separate the Teuf from the oil? Bringt Rashi dem Pirush und Divrei Agode. So Rashi brings the interpretation of Agode. Ra'ohu she'ene kidai l'shtamish bo rishoyim. He saw that it's not fit because it has the Teuf in it. That toiv is not fit for the Rishoyim to be used. Alpizei is move on. Like we said, this answers other question. Aleph was Babin Chomish Lemikra Vert Nidglach Shaila. The 5-year-old will ask a question. If the Ebrister, so how can we see the light today? Was meintiv dilul tzadikim? What does it mean he's separated from the tzadikim? Beisas mezedem eats. You see the light now. So what does it mean he's separated for the tzadikim? Valkinal, like we said before, nor the Teuf Shebayriv Dila. Because when the Eibishter separated the Teuf Taka we don't see. And by Yavdil Elikim Esoir, he separated the oil from the Elikim Kitoiv. By Yavdil, he separated from the Kitoiv. We see the light, not the Kitoiv. Beis, but Rashi bringt as if Dila Tzadikim lost in love. What does Rashi to say for the future to come? Rashi could have just said he's separated for the Tzadikim. Because sich nicht mistappig mit sagen bloß if Diloi Litzadikim, just to Litzadikim. Well, the mid dieted on Rashi, because Rashi points out over here, as the Teuf Shebayr is nicht kein Inyan was Shaykh zu wissen it's. Rashi points out, you don't know it now. It's not because it's not for Tzadikim now. It's in the future to come. Was euch bei warum euch bei Tzadikim wird das sein los love be by the future? Because not now. It's Tzadikim los love. So this explains. Rashi learns the pasuk that because the pasuk says "Vayara lekim esa oir kitov," this is an additional thing that Hashem said "Vaykitov vayavdil," and that's why he separated. What did he separate? He separated the toiv from the oil, so he was left oil over here, and this answers the question: what happened to the oil, and why litzadikim lo love it? Because now Taka we can't see that. And hey, if is move on, also we understand was Rashi is Magdim am Boze on the Tzrich Medivre Agode van dem Pirush Lebdi Pshute. Why Rashi comes with this pshat first before the pshat? Well, Davke Leutem Pirush from Divre Agode, but because specifically according to the Agode interpretation is Meduya Kyoser, the word Vayavdil. The Vayavdil is more precise, more accurate, more specific. Vibald as zwischen Eur v'choshech kemen nit teichen. By Yavdil Kipshutei, between Eur and Choshech, you can't say by Yavdil means literally to separate. Wenn man teilt von anderen zwei Sachen, was einem Mechuber Yachdov, like to separate two things that are connected together. Is Vadei zu Masbir sein, dem Pirush von Vayavdil in dem Hemshech HaKosov. So in order to explain what does it mean Vayavdil in the continuation Vayadali Kimas Oir Kitoy Vayavdil, he saw the Kitoy Vayavdil on the Tzrich Medivre Agode. So here we need the words of Agode. Was mit die Divre Agode wird verantwortet the Pshat HaKosov. Now we understand the meaning of the pasuk as the Pirush from Vayavdil is Kipshutei. separated out. The oil had a kitoiv in it, and you separated. Avdol in the Zachguf. And there's Avdol in the Zachguf. There was a separation in the oil itself. Zwischen dem Toiv Shaboir and the Oil Shaboir, between the Toiv, Vayaki Toiv, and the Oil Shaboir. Al derech v'yira kia b'seich hamayim, like the Rekia in the middle of the water, so the separation between water and water through the Rekia. Here we separated the Toiv from the Oil, so the Oil Shaboir and the Toiv Shaboir. Und der Fall kommt der Pirush Lefi Pshutei al Sveiten Rashi. That's what the Pshut comes second, because the only way to really explain Vayavdil, when it's not talking about the Oil is Vayavdil makes sense when we separate the Oil Shaboir and the Toiv Shaboir. That's why it's second. Weil Chodsh das is Lefi Pshutei from dem Teuchen HaPosik, even though the content of the Posik is separating between Oil and Choshech. The Avdola ben Erachesha, that's the simple meaning. But we can't really separate there. Is a sober weiter from Pirush HaPoshit shall tebas Vayavdil. It's further away from the words of Vayavdil. So, Viloitim Pirush and Divrei Agoda, then the meaning from the words of the Agoda. Warum Lefip Shuta is da nicht aufgetan geworden, kein Havdola zwischen zwei Sachen mechuborim, because in the Pshat, there was really no separation between things that were connected. Nit b'mokim, nit b'zman. Not, they weren't the same place and wasn't the same time. Nor a kviyas tchum for yed the but always set up his boundaries for each one. But there was no real separation. High time, darf Rashi meisiv sein in dem Pirus v'pshutei. That's what Rashi has to add when he says in the Pshat, he adds the words, repeats it, Ra'u kitoif. Even though he already is basing himself on the pasuk. So he doesn't just say that separate between Oyer and Choshev. Kenal, if might design as lefipshute is the pirush kitoiv kipshute. They says Ra'u kitoiv means literally that the toiv is nit nochan in Oyer. It's not as additional, like according to the Medrash, that there was the toiv shebe'oyer. But we learned Nashton Pirush, as in the Korban. The Meir Gufa Kitoiv. He saw that it is good, and that's why it's emphasizing this, that this is the Kitoiv that he saw in the oil, and that is what prompted that's why the Vayavdil is taka doesn't make so much not fitting as it is according to the first one, which we're actually separating two things that are together. So the Rebbe's chiddush here is that the Vayavdil fits more according to the Agoda because you're separating two things. What is this separating the two things? He saw there was another oir, that it was another seeing kitoiv, that it was good. Vayavdil, and then he separates it between the oir shabayr and the toiv shabayr. But in Pshutish Mikra that we're talking about, oir v'choshech, Vayavdil is not fitting because it's not really Avdil. And that's why Rashi brings down the second as the second shot. The Rebbe now in Oiz Vov is going to explain Rashi's language. The Rashi says, Av bozeh onu tzrichim l'divrei agoda. Why does Rashi have to say, also here we need, this comes in continuation to before. Why do we have to explain the agoda only because the continuation of before? The Rebbe gives her a tremendous insight. The Rebbe says that what did the Breishis Borer, the Rashi before explained, Divrei Agoda, the Breishis B'Shvil Yisrael, or B'Shvil HaTorah. That means that the Agoda explains that even though Torah and the Yidden became a people, took much later, but yet in the beginning, Breishis Borer, all of the world was creation, was it reveals what it's for, what's the purpose. The Rebbe says the same thing here also. The Agode reveals what the purpose of the oir is, as the Rebbe will go into a detailed explanation. Both. According to the above, we can also explain in the initial Torah should be Pirush Rashi, Loshan Rashi, Rashi's language, Av Bozeh Onu Tzrich Medivra Agod, also here. What does it mean also here? Where did we talk about Agode? Kommt es behemshach zu Divrei Rashi Free Rev Breishis. This follows the words of Rashi before in Breishis. Rashi says, Eina mikra hazeh oimer elodar shuni. This pasuk is saying, you have to expound me. Why does Rashi have to attach this avbozeh here to? How is this followed before? L'cheir is ditklatik. This is not smooth, this language that Rashi uses over here. The mind of Kamina, what difference does it make? Ados bos on utzrich divrei agode, lead is divrei agode, that we need to come on to. Where's it good? Is this need the mershtemol? It's not the first time. Avbozeh. Afilu men frier vod Rashi nit gebracht kein Agode. Let's say Rashi would not have brought Agode before. Vibald ober as do is tzrich divrei Agode. Here we need Darfis Rashi to bring it. He has to bring it. So what does Rashi have to say? Av bozeh. Also here, like before, what does the Av bozeh add to the Rashi? Why is Rashi saying that? From the Mloshen Av bozeh on utzrichim divrei Agode is mashma. From this language, it seems like as the divrei Agode do mashaychis. The words of the Agode that we're saying over here have a connection. Ähnlichkeit zum Drashe Breishis Bora. They're similar to the drasha of Breishis Bora. Is the birbaze. So what's the explanation? In the Pirush of an Ershtum Pasuk Breishis Bora is Rashi Mefarish on the explaining the first Pasuk. Rashi explains Eina Mikraze Eimer Elo Darsheni Darshon. This Pasuk says, expound me. B'shvil HaTorah shenikras Reishis Darkoi. That base Reishis is the two Reishis for the Torah, which is called Reishis Darkoi. That's one Reishis. So B'shvil Yisrael, and also Yidden are called Reishis Nikru Reishis Tvos in the beginning of his Tvos. The myth was the Torah is Magdim Breishis. The fact that the Torah adds the word Breishis B'shvil HaTorah B'shvil Yisrael, before saying Bora Likim, that says Torah v'Yisrael. Chosh the Torah redo wegen Brias Shemayim v'Orez v'Chol Tzvayim. Although the Torah is discussing here creation of the heavens and the earth and all the armies, so we're not talking here about the Yidden or Torah. Und the Torah is erst gegeben geworden später. Torah was given later on. Weil derech ze Yisrael, similar Yidden seien geworden an Am erst. They only became a people after Nochana is came from Mitzrayim, after going out of Mitzrayim, and when they have Makabel given the Torah, and when they received the Torah. Still, Gitzi the Hayra. So the pasuk by saying first Breishis is telling us the lesson. What is the emes Metzias from the ganze Bria? What is the true existence of all creation? It's not like what it appears. Bora Likimas Shemayim is Breishis. Bora Likimas Shemayim Vesoretz is nit kin tachlis v'inyan for sich. That's not a goal and not separate by itself. Nor the Bria is to live Torah v'Yisrael. The creation is because of Torah and Yid. So what does that mean? So what does Darshuni say? It says Darash v'Agoda shebet the expounding and the Avgoda of Torah was Reiv Soidus HaTorah Gnuzim Bo, which the majority of the secrets of the Torah are hidden in the Drush and Agoda, is Megala de Pnimius Vamitis from der Bria. That reveals the inner and the truth of creation. This is nit ametzias zu lieb sich. It's not an entity by itself, nor Bishvil HaTorah, Bishvil Yisrael. It's for Torah and Yidden. That's the Agoda tells us that this is the Bora Likim, is the Breishis. Al derech zeh is as benegated to Mitzias Oir. Similarly is to the existence of light. As Abozeh Tzrichim, Abozeh Anu Tzrichim Ledivra Agoda, we also need here Agoda, Medarf Oich Megale Zain, the Pnimius Oir. We also need to reveal, the Agoda reveals what is the inner of Oir. Oir is nit a Metzias Bishvil Atzmai. That Oir is not an entity by itself, a creation by itself, an entity. And Oir makes light, illuminates. That's what Oir is. So we have to reveal the inner of light, that it's not just an illuminating thing, which what it is, because it's different. Nivroyim seinen ametzias b'fnei. Creations are an entity by themselves. But Oiskitelt for the Alman is Oir is different than regular creation. It is bepastus nor bishvil. Simply, it's only because something else, to reveal something. In Yonis blois was durch him. What is light is through light. Blois was durch him vet nisgale v'nira, when were revealed and visible. The Sachen was eine Faran in the Bria. Things that are in creation, he reveals, shows them. On them without the light, they are obscure, they're dark. Agod is over megale pnimius oir. So what is Agod to reveal? What the real entity of the light is. As pnimius mitziusai, that the inner entity, the inner mitzius of oir is nit nor inyan hamegala. It's not only that it's light, that it's megala reveals, ha'oir shaboy, nor der toiv shaboy, that there is the toiv within the oir, which is not just the gilu, and this is oich ha'hagdome, and this becomes an introduction when we explain the oir, welch is mevair than Pirush Rashi in the Pasuk Lachrosen, which explains the Pasuk. We have another problem. Before the Rebbe goes on to explain what the Agoda shows the toiv, exactly, the Rebbe goes on to say, but this explains to us another problem we have in the next Rashi, which this Agoda, by revealing what Oir is, answers another issue we have in the next Rashi. Rashi is mefarish of the Posi, and then the Posi, when it says later on, evening and morning, then it was day one. If you say the Loshna Parsha, in the order of the Parsha, you should say Yom Rishon. Yom Sheni, Yom Shlishi, you should say Yom Rishon. Lama Kosov Echad. Where's Echad? Lefi Shoya Kodesh Baruch Hu Yom Yochid Ba'elami. Because the Eibishter was the only thing in the world. Shlei Nivru HaMalochim Ad Yom Sheni. The angels weren't born till Yom Sheni. That's the explanation. But this Rashi needs to be explained. What does it mean there was nothing else? It was Oir, the Eibishter created, and the first day he created. Oir, v'lecheire, afal piyaz malachim nivru b'yom sheni, although the malachim were created on the second day, is the chaber b'yom rishon tzugikume b'riyas Oir, but on the first day there was Oir. So v'kem and zognu shoya HaKadosh Baruch Hu yochid b'elam, it was just the Eibishter alone in the world. Was weiß das ist nicht gewenke shum ander b'riyah, there was another creation. Und der Tiritz of them wird mevuer, the answer is explained up in the Divra Agoda was is megale, then toiv was idoinamer. That reveals, like we said, that there is toiv in the oir. Then we understand why it's not a contradiction. That means that the Eibishter was alone in the world. The Rebbe explains that the language of Onu is telling us that we're revealing the Pnimius, just like by Breishis reveals the Pnimius of Bora Likim. Over here, the Agoda reveals what's the Pnimius of Oir, that Oir is not just to illuminate, but Oir also has the idea of Toiv. And the fact that it has the idea of Toiv explains the next Rashi, that it should. Rashi says there was only Hashem in the world, and how oir is not considered to be an extra item. And the Rebbe explains now in Isaiah. How is that? So Rebbe says that the Asbora was many places they explain the pasuk where the pasuk says that Eina sat lefnecha ayoim sachayim v'satoy v'samov zisara. See, I've given you today life and good and death and bad. So, and then say choose life. So choose good, because if you choose good, then you have life. You should choose life. As Chaim v'movis. So it's explained in several places. Of course, life and death nit kipshuto doesn't mean literally. But a miza pesi, who would be so foolish, was vet nit oiskleiden in Chaim v'toiv anstatt ha'hepech. It means literally that what do you need to choose? Who's going to choose opposite of life and good instead of that's obvious. Why do you need to say v'charta? What does it really mean? The pirish in them is the meaning is as yeder nivra b'shas chayusa v'kiyumah, during while he is alive and while he's it's not really death, but while you're alive is doinim chayim v'movis. You have in your life you have life and death. The gashmi is hadover. The physicality, the materialistic of the matter is death. Because this item does not create and vitalize on its own. On its own, it's the physicality. There's nothing. It doesn't last. It's not. It's death. It doesn't have chayis. When the ruchni is the koyach habeira halikisha boy, but then you have the spirituality, the power, godly power, which is in the physicality, is the rein from Chaim. That's the life. The nivras Chaim, the creator's Chaim. Und the chlal, and in generally in them, is the talking kiloins, is b'chinas kiyum nitzchi. There is no expiration. There is no ending. It doesn't finish. It stands forever. The material physicality doesn't have, it's temporary, doesn't have its own life. The life that violates is eternal. That's the Chaim and Movis that we're talking about. But here, there's two levels over here. There is the level of Chaim and there's the level of Toiv. In them gufa seine dort zwei madriges. Here itself, there's two levels. When we talk about the life, what vitalizes, memala kol almim, sevav kol almim. We have two lives that vitalize. The Chaim in Yed Nivra is the madrege von alakus was sich mislabish in imlach yosei. The life in every created being is the level of godliness that dresses up memala kol almim, bechinas memala kol almim. Then you have, that's the chayis. Then you have the toiv. Was of them werd gesagt, ki toiv chaz de chayim. That your kindness is better than Chaim, which is a higher level. Is the bechina von alakus was his hecher faris lapshus to mechai zayin nevroim. That's the level in godliness which is higher than memala kol almi, which dresses up the nevroim. That's bechina sevav kol almi shebememale. That's the sevav kol almi that dresses up in the memale. So basically, the Rebbe is saying that in the world, the toiv, there is the Chaim and there's the Toiv. The Chaim is Mamalakul Almin. That's what vitalizes. The Gashmi's material, that's Mavis. That's the Chaim, the life. The Toiv Mechayim, that's the level of Semuklam. Und Agodesh B'Teure is Megala Euch dem Roz und Pnimius V'Noir. So the God of Torah explains to us the secret and the inner of Oir, what Oir is. As Amitis Mitziyusei, that the essence of Oir is nicht das, was es spoilt, as es wird entplegt. It's not that it impacts, that it reveals the Gashmis Metzius Anivra, that that he brings about, that you can see when you see oil light, so then you can see the physicality, the entity of the nira, the material of it. Nos dos was es wird nisgale de emetze mitzil shebenivra. Agoda tells us that the light actually illuminates and shows us what really the existence of Mitzias Nivra. It's that Memala Ikolam, it's the Dvar Hashem, the Dvar Hashem was is Mechaye, Mahaba Mekayim. So it reveals not only the physicality, but the Dvar Hashem, and also the level of Toiv. These two madreges Toiv and Elkus, Bechina Sevglam. It reveals Memala and Sevglam was is doing al Nivraim, that it is in all creations. So what is the toy? What is the oir? That oir has in itself also that it reveals toy. Und der Inyan, und dem Inyan is, and this part, the toiv, the revelation, seeing the godliness, is ra'o she'ne kedai lishtamish b'rishoyim. He said it's not fit for the rishoyim to use the pnimius of oir to see the truth, because there's going to be no bechira. Warum da mudvat fell that in a bechira? You'll be lacking the bechira, because if you're going to see that pnimius of the oir, you're going to see the godliness, you're going to see seviv kolam, you're going to see the taiv, you're not going to have bechira. Zendig them Emerson, zendig them Emerson Nivra, to see the truth in every creation, as amitis mitzius is the chayis aleki, that his true existence is the godly chayis. Is doch the shaykh zu becher sein hofche, then it wouldn't fit to choose anything opposite. The riber hivdil le tzadikim lo love. That's why it's now it has to be bechira. We can't see the truth. Can't have that level of oir. The riber hivdil lo love. Was damel wird sein wie jeder kol pol, katapalt. Everything will know that you create a chulam bizas viro kol bosa yardov, until all flesh will see together. Kipi Hashem diber. Everybody will see Kipi Hashem Diba, then Bidvar Abai Shemaim Nasu, that it's the Eberster's word, the Chayis of all the Gashmis. Und das ist der Hemshech von, das ist aber sehr onul tzrichim le Divra Agoda zu drash in Breishis Bora. This is the continuation. Here we also have to take the words of Agoda to the expounding of Breishis Bora. Kishem v'in der Bria Bechlal, just as in creation in general, Bora Lekim. Chotz Torah v'Yisrael zayin l'chayra an inyan, even though the Torah and Yidden are seemingly a matter was kommt in der Bria später, that comes later on. Is man gleich megale, immediately we're revealing ados is matoras habria, that this is the purpose of creation, b'shvil Torah b'shvil Yisrael, that is for Torah and Yidden, al derech zeh binyan ha'oid. Similar ways by the oid. Afal pi as dem toiv shebe oir is hivdilo letzadikim le'asid lovei, that he hid the tzadikim for the future to see the toiv, the inner part of the mitzias. We don't see it now. Is das ober da mitis in von oir? That is really what oir is. Und the river is Brias Oir B'Yemerishin can steer neither zu. That's why it doesn't contradict was mezogt as B'Yemerishin HaKadosh Baruch Yochid B'Elomei, that the Eibus was only in the world. Why? Vorum Adra. The Rebbe said Inyan von Oir Shenivra B'Yemerishin is, what was the Oir that was created? Is Oir HaSefer Shel Mayla Mishtalshalos. B'chinas Shever Shebai. That's the inner part of oir, is the toiv sheba oir, is the sevav which is in oir. B'chinas toiv sheba. Shimyone is to megala sein, which the idea of that in the Bria Gufa, so that in the creation itself, as in the Torah, there's nothing besides Hashem. Hakadosh Baruch Hu Yochid Be'Elamed, the Eibishter is just alone in His world, without anything else, and therefore that is Yochid Be'Elamed. That is Echad. That is what the so the Eibishter was leaving this for the future, but the Agoda tells us that the Oir is Take revealing that the Eibishter is the real Metzias, and therefore there's nothing besides the Eibishter. That's how the Rebbe explains Afonu, that the continuation of revealing the inner part of creation, the same thing as revealing the inner part of Oir, which allows us to the Pasuk to say later on that there was nothing else besides the Eibishter, because that is what is really the level of Oir. But lost in love when there'll be tzaddikim is not going to be bechira that we don't need. But now, for the shoy meaning, we need the level of bechira now. And ches, the mit is Rashi Eich Meramis, Ahiro, also hint, Rashi Eich Meramis Ahiro in the Limud HaTorah von Haiden. Rabbi also gives a lesson how a person should learn. Because the Faris are madgish, that's why he emphasized not just Abozet Tzrichim, but it says Abozet Onu Tzrichim L'divrei Agoda. We need the words of the Agoda. Und sagt nicht stam Abozet Tzrichim L'divrei Agoda. It just says Abon Onu Tzrichim. By Yidin Gewen Al Kasal Kadaitach, because there's a thought, a Yid can have a thought. Bishloime Oti Yidin was haben ständig zu tun mit Inyone Abriya. We understand those Yidden that are constantly involved with matters of creation, as Shemayim Besoretz. And B'chlolus, that would be included B'nai Yisrael, Balei Esek, people who are in business. Darfen ze onkommen, they need to come on to Eina Mikra Zeh, Oimer Elo Darshuni, this pasuk tells us, you have to expand, this is not really what you think it is, the world. Shemayim Voretz, no, there is Breishis B'Shul HaTorah, to Drasha B'Torah, to the expounding of Torah, Megala Zayin as Breishis Boro, in order to reveal that Breishis Boro is B'Shvil HaTorah, B'Shvil Yisrael, it's for the Torah and the Yid. The Baal that Hotzuton mit Inyona Ha'ilom, since he has to do, he's involved with worldly matters, Ken Dasim Aval Zayin, so this can distract him, Mushterun Zan Avedis Hashem, to disrupt his service of Hashem. Or the Rakopon in the Mitzis Oilam is by him Tefes Mokim. Or if it doesn't distract him, at least it takes up room. He values it. Dafer Onkum Metzudroshes HaTorah was on ihm egal sein under Monen. So he needs to come on to the expounding of Torah, to reveal to him and remind him, as die Welt is nicht kein Metzias b'fnei Atzmi. This world is not an entity by itself. Nor is Bashafen geworden b'shvil HaTorah b'shvil Yisrael. He needs to know that. Don't think the world is by itself, that it's an independence for the Yidden and for Torah. And those pelt of him, and this would impact him as sein Hoben zu tun mit Inyone Oilom, that the fact that he needs to deal with worldly matters, that needs to sein Avidus Hashem, that doesn't interfere with his service to Hashem. The Adrabah. And on the contrary, durch sein Avidus Hashem Shamayim, when he serves the Eberster for the sake of the heaven, in all ways he knows Hashem, macht die Welt Fadir lo Yisborach, he makes the world Fadir lo Yisborach. So the person thinks, okay, the Baal Esek needs to do that because he is involved with it. Rashi tells us, Onu, over Aida Yeshavoy, or a Yid who is sitting in the tent, which is only connected with matters of light. Ner mitzvah v'Torah, the light of mitzvah and the light of Torah. The lamp is mitzvah and the light of Torah. And he's standing in the lichtige Tal Damas Shel Halacha. He's always in the four illuminated cubits of Halacha v'Shel Tefillah and Davening. Darf nicht ankommen zu limud Agodas u'Pnimis HaTorah. He doesn't need to reveal the premise of Torah that the Bishvil Israel Bishvil HaTorah. If them sagt Rashi, the Rashi says the lesson, aber ze onu tzrich mit divrei Agoda. Even here we need Agoda. Euch in dem Esek binyon erisha b'Torah. Also, when we occupy ourselves in the matter of light of Torah, Bizas Rashi sagt auf onu, and his koil sich, he's including himself, which means even Rashi, who's involved in the light, often uncle divrei Agoda. To use the language of the Alter Rebbe Milchus Talmud Torah as the limud darf sein euch bedroshus ha'agodis. We also one needs to study the expounding of the Haggadah lisboinen metoichem musar haskel, to reflect from them a lesson. Leidas Hashem, to know Hashem, k'moshe amru chachamim, as the chachamim say, ritzoncha shetakim mishamar v'hoya olam. If you desire to recognize the one who said the world created Hashem, lemoit divrei Haggadah, learn the words of Haggadah. Shemekech kach hatamakeres HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That way you will recognize HaKadosh Baruch Hu mizdabek b'drachav, and connect in his ways. Because most of the secrets of the Torah, which is the wisdom of the Kabbalah and the knowing Hashem, are hidden in the Agodah. That's the secret of Torah. That's the way to know Hashem. So the Alter Rebbe says you got to study Agodah, everybody. The limud primis HaTorah, the learning of the inner part of Torah, was b'yameinu and is also b'Torah Chasidus. And nowadays it's been revealed in the teaching of Hasidus, darf man haben nicht nur zu lieb lernen und wissen nach a chelik mit Torah. We don't just have to do this to study and to know another section of Torah. Und zu lieb mekayim sein dem Tzivah, and to fulfill the command, das Elokei Avicha, know your Hashem. You need to learn Primis HaTorah to know Hashem. But it's negei af bazeh onu tzrichim. In dem inyan ha'oir, in limud HaTorah oir. Also, when we're learning Torah on Utzrichen, we did. It needs to be. He needs to have the Pnimis HaTorah for all for learning, for the generally the light to Torah must be Baruch Hu B'Torah Tchila. In the beginning, Damult is the Torah before everything else. Damult is the Torah. Then it's the light of Torah. Nasis Le'Sam Chaim. It becomes a medicine, a drug of life, when their veis and their hair, the pnimis and their emes from Torah, when he knows and he senses the inner and the truth of Torah, them Tosha b'Torah, as dosis nosan lono es Torah, so he gave us his Torah, Torah's Hashem. Val Yoda, and through the Torah, verbindet sich mit Neusna Torah, he ties himself to the one who gave the Torah. But das ist doch der Teuchen Birchas HaTorah. This is the content, this is what the blessing of Torah is, with their Bach Letur. As the Bach on the Torah writes, Nigla the Torah is Mevair, so this is in the Nigla of Torah, we see this also. Is Mevair Kadesh, it is Atzim Nishmasenu, Atzmus Veruchnis, Ukedushas, Mekoir Meitzah Torah, so that our souls should be united with the essence, our essence, with the essence of spirituality, and the sanctity of the source from the Torah comes. Merkava ve'echel shchinosis baruch, to be a chariot, and the room from the blessed Shechina. Shechina mamash bekirim, the Shechina is in them. So you see, the Bach is saying that the Torah, the blessing of the Torah, is necessary to become a vehicle and a place to connect and to the sanctity and become a Merkava, and the room for Hashem. All of it is through the bracha. Zu dem kommt man zu durch Limud Primis HaTorah. You can only get there through learning the inner parts of Torah. Was is Bechinas Eitz HaChayim, the tree of life. Elikus is in Ir Meir Begil. Over there, godliness shines openly. Und durch dem Limud von Primis HaTorah, through studying the inner part of Torah, zusammen mit dem Limud von Nigla the Torah, together with the real part of Torah, Zok Terayim Mehemne. So the faithful shepherd, the Zohar, the section Rayim and Hemna says, as my gate min golus uberachmim, and we go out of this golus with mercy, begula hamitis v'ashleim, but the true and complete redemption. But as this galaver and their oir shebdila l'tzadikim l'salavim, when it will be revealed that light that Hashem is separated for tzaddik in the future to come, b'meir b'meinu mamesh b'agola didan. Sichos Shabbos Parshas Breishis Tavshin Mem Gimel.